Yo, what's up guys, Ghost here, welcome back to Stormgate Central, and in today's video we're going to be going over a lot of interesting answers that we've recently gleaned from a Q&A that was done over on Reddit. They did an Ask Me Anything, and there was a lot of interesting questions asked over there, a lot of concerns and things that have come up in public about Stormgate, such as the artwork, the campaign, performance. A lot of the issues and worries that I feel the community have with the game at the moment have been addressed here, and I think this is a really important time to do it because, of course, early access is going to be starting up in August, and whilst early access isn't 1.0, it's not the full release of the game. It's going to take them over a year at least, I think, of early access production before they get the game to that state. Nevertheless, it's still going to be the first time that people really have to jump into the game for free and give it a try, and for I think a lot of people that may be the make or break time where they just decide, I really like this game and I'm going to keep an eye on it in the future, or this is not for me. So before we jump into all of the questions and answers, if you guys do enjoy the content here on the channel, make sure you hit up that subscribe button. I will be covering this game a lot once it releases into early access, and you can expect guides, casts, and of course all the news here on the channel. So if that's something that interests you, then a subscription will be ever so much appreciated. And as always guys, thank you so much for your support so far. So let's begin with the elephant in the room, and let's tackle one of the biggest issues with Stormgate for a lot of people, and that's the art style. So the first answer here is from Tim Morton. He is one of the co-founders of Frost Giant Games who are developing Stormgate, and he's got a bit of a three-part answer here for us. So he says, we've seen a variety of positive comments and then 3 different flavors of critical feedback. First of all, that some things look unfinished. Second of all, that some people dislike the stylization of the game. And then thirdly, that some people dislike similarities to Blizzard games. And I would say that holds true with what I've seen on my comment section and other places online as well. So it says here, it's true that our look has not finished evolving. We start development with a gameplay focus and iterate on everything else from there. We posted this video last year which illustrated how Stormgate has been evolving over time, and you guys will be watching that in the background here. The nature of early access is that our current state is just one more step along the journey as opposed to being the final destination. So there are a lot of changes yet to come for the game. There are a lot of lighting passes, shader passes, things of that nature that I think are really going to make the overall aesthetic of the game pop. Stylization is a conscious choice on our part. We made this choice because we like stylization the most, and we believe it's the best choice for Stormgate. We recognize that beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and that every time we make any decision, some will have different opinions. We hope that lots of players will play and enjoy our game, even if there are a variety of sensibilities out there. We are very much putting our hearts into what we build, and it makes us sad to see criticism. We wish there were a way for us to make everyone happy all of the time. We expect our visual style to continue to refine and improve over time, and we will definitely be mindful of the varying opinions that we've seen, but we plan to continue with a stylized visual direction for Stormgate. So just quickly before we move on to the third part of his answer here, what he's essentially saying is the art direction for the game is going to stay the same as it has. So if that's been a massive turn off for you and, you just really don't like that, I guess that's just going to be how it is. It is one of those things, right? You can't please everybody. They have to pick a lane. And I will be the first person to initially say that when I first saw Stormgate and I saw the initial trailer before I played the game, I wasn't overly keen on the art style either. However, having played the game and gotten used to the art style, I don't have any problem with it at all. Would it be the art style and the direction that I would personally choose for the game? No, probably not. But it's by no means a deal breaker for me either. So what I'd say to anybody out there who has just seen the game and you think it looks childish, or like some people say it looks like a free-to-play mobile game, which I really disagree with, but you haven't actually played the game yet, what I would say is wait until it releases in early access on the 13th of August and you can play for free. Hop in then, and play the game before passing judgment on it. So he continues here. We love Blizzard games. Different Frost Giant team members were fortunate to play a part in developing Warcraft, Starcraft, Diablo, and Overwatch. We don't deliberately reference specific Blizzard characters, units, or structures as inspiration, but since many of us spent a good chunk of our careers immersed in the Blizzard style, we naturally gravitate towards similarity. Stormgate is a love letter to Blizzard RTS, and we are not setting out to make a big departure, but instead to create our own world in the context of this style that we love. So again, that's another big point of criticism I've seen from many people, is that it's essentially just copying StarCraft 2, or it's like a budget StarCraft 2 as some people call it. And whilst a lot of the units do share similar abilities or similar roles within the game, I feel like that's part of the selling factor of the game. That's what people are hoping from Frostgiant. They're hoping for a Blizzard RTS, something that is inspired by StarCraft, and it is inspired by Warcraft. That's certainly what I would like, and a lot of people will throw this out there and say, oh well, why not just play StarCraft 2? It's a better game, it's better quality, it's been more refined, and the easy answer for me is it's no longer supported. StarCraft 2 is not getting any content right now, guys. We're getting maybe the odd balance patch every now and again, but the way the game is right now is pretty much the way the game is going to remain for the rest of our lives. When a Stormgate is going to continually get support, it's going to continually get more content and be iterated on over time, and I just think that's something that a lot of people get excited about and want to be part of. So here's another answer from Stell, who is an art producer. They say, thanks for the question. We're moving fast and building a lot of content. We certainly need to focus on the environments more. The campaign has all sorts of various lighting setups that I think the player will enjoy and push the game a lot further than what we've shown up to this point. We were focused on playtesting PvP for a long time in the studio, and brighter lighting helped us work in that space. Early access will have a lot of lighting changes. So that's going to be exciting to see. Apparently, the early access build we're going to be seeing towards the end of July, if you're a backer, or you're going to be playing it in August if you want to play it free to play, is going to look a lot different than Frigate. So I'm super excited to see just how much more polished it looks. Here's another one from Kaizen, a level designer, and they say, our forest tile set was our first and clearly very dear to our hearts, but we absolutely have plans for more. Some of our current co-op and 1v1 maps feature the Deadlands tile set, which is his personal favourite, and we've turned our sights on campaign missions. A lot of work has been going into making cool and new tile sets to feature there. Is there an environment you want to see the most? So we've recently seen some of the more apocalyptic, rundown, urban type environments with the newest Celestial trailer. I also got some concept art from the folks at Frostgiant, so I'm putting some of this up on screen here just to show you guys some of the campaign assets that they've released to us, and some of the other tile sets that you can expect. But yes, of course, for the most part, we've all been seeing either this green, foresty tile set or the desert one, and they are getting a little bit bland, so it's going to be interesting to see future tile sets that they add to the game. Here's another one from Stell on the terrain, and they say, early access will have a lot of lighting changes. Beyond the lighting, we need to work on our roughness maps of the terrain. Right now, the terrain is extremely flat visually to facilitate testing, and we need to dial our maps in a lot to get the variation we are after. So it's the same really when it comes to all parts of the game. At the moment, when they're testing, they can't finalize any of the art or any of the lighting or anything like that. Same with performance, I think, because things aren't set in stone yet. Once they've figured out exactly what they want to have in the game, then all of those changes can take place. Now, moving on to a slightly different topic here, this is all about the campaign. So I think a lot of people who are predominantly looking to experiencing the campaign have some questions on like how long is the campaign going to be, how is it going to work in comparison to a campaign, let's say, like from StarCraft 2. So here's an answer from Mickey Nielsen, the lead narrative designer, and they say there will be some narrative player choice early on, with plans to greatly expand those options in future content in ways that will affect narrative to varying degrees. And then here's another answer, and they say each race will have its own dedicated campaign, providing depth and insight into that race's particular struggle, motivations, and etc. They also said that each chapter, which is going to contain 3 or more missions, are going to have their own mini arcs, but will also serve as segments of a much larger story, all contributing to sagas that will span many years. So it sounds like we are going to get some smaller stories within the big overarching story of Stormgate, of the Infernals versus the Vanguard. And then we've got some interesting characters as well, like Wars, who is this Celestial guy that I didn't realize this at first, but apparently he's a Celestial who has fallen from grace and then banded together with the Infernals for some reason, so I'm sure there's going to be a lot of backstory there to him. They also say here that the Infernals, the humans, and the Celestials all have rich and deeply developed histories, mythology, and processes and methodology, all of which we continue to expand upon, and the campaigns will absolutely delve into all of these elements. Here's an answer on the cutscenes in the game, and there they say there will absolutely be a mix of pre-rendered and in-game cutscenes and cinematics. In the future, we would love to have a central location where player characters can interact with NPCs and provide opportunities to expand the story and character development. Design can better handle our progression, systems, upgrades, and etc. So I guess what they're talking about here is, you know, similar to Starcraft 2, where you're like on the ship, right, for the Terran campaign. You're going to have to excuse me if I can't remember the exact details. It's been a while, or like 15 years or so. But from what I recall, you could interact with all of the characters between missions. You could talk to them, get some extra dialogue out of them, ask them questions and things of that nature. So I think that's what they're referring to here. And here's another answer from Tim on the matter, and he says, one of the reasons that we decided to take a quarterly approach to storytelling was the long wait between installments of Starcraft 2. So, for those who don't know, Wings of Liberty came out, and then you got the Terran campaign, and then we got Heart of the Swarm, which came with the Zerg campaign, which was, I don't know, when was that, like a year or more after Starcraft 2 released? And then finally we got Legacy of the Void. And there was a long wait of like at least a year between these expansions and the evolution of the campaign. So it says, on Starcraft we saw a measurable fall off in players between story expansions. Just like binge watching a TV series, it will still be possible to consume Stormgate's story in big chunks for players who choose to wait, but we hope that having a shorter time between installments will actually increase engagement with the story. With Stormgate, we aspire to provide a regular flow of updates to keep players engaged, and we have future plans to continue enhancing both the open-ended co-op mode, which seems to attract many campaign players, and future plans to add the ability to play campaign missions with 3 players. Oh wow, that's like more than co-op then. You can play with 3 players? That's kind of crazy. We have many years of story content planned, so please stay tuned. So I guess, you know, instead of like releasing a whole series of 10 episodes at once, it's kind of like they're feeding you 1 episode a week. It's more of that kind of feeling that you'll get from watching a weekly episode, even though it's going to be obviously a bit longer than that. Now, this is a very interesting question and answer to me. This guy here, unique username 40, he asks, when you first announced Stormgate, a big deal was made of the genre being sci-fi, blending sci-fi and fantasy. What has been shown so far is very heavily skewed towards sci-fi. Are there any plans or likelihood for more fantasy elements to be introduced outside of the Infernals? And Tim replies here and says, I can't fully answer this question without spoilers, but the answer is a resounding yes. So that's interesting, because in a previous Q&A that I seem to recall he did with a gaming news outlet, he said they may be considering putting a 4th faction in the game. Obviously that will be quite some time down the line. I don't think it would even be in early access. It will probably be after the 1.0 release, so, you know, over a year from now, but that could be a possibility. Now, on the topic of Easter eggs, here is Tim Campbell, the other co-founder, the other Tim, and he says, I can assure you that our team members are big fans of Easter eggs and that we're enthusiastic about incorporating them. We'll have some in for the start of early access, and more will definitely be added after. My hope is that each campaign level will include multiple fun things for eagle-eyed players to find, from little environmental storytelling scenes to secret locations with hidden items and ultimately full-fledged Easter eggs. So that's awesome. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of Starcraft, maybe Diablo, Warcraft related things there. So if you're a massive, you know, Blizzard fan of the past, let's say, like I am, that's going to be fun to uncover all of that stuff. Here's another really interesting answer as well. He says, I don't want to give spoilers, but we'll definitely go beyond Earth in multiple ways. Earth itself will also experience some significant events that will enable us to vary our tile sets pretty wildly. So not only are, he's probably referring to like the dystopian sort of, you know, run-down world tile set, I would imagine. Maybe it's something different, but it sounds like we're also going to experience, you know, some of the different tile sets, kind of what you saw in StarCraft 2, right, where in that game you're on all of these different planets with these different environments. So you even had like these metal, you know, tile sets and stuff like that. Now, on the subject of heroes, this person asks for co-op. Are there plans to include heroes that are not related to any faction, such as like the Naga from Warcraft 3? And Tim says, yes, definitely. I can't share info yet, but back in my Warcraft 3 days, I helped to make the Naga faction, and I'm very enthusiastic about introducing characters and elements that exist outside the bounds of our current factions. Here's another answer from Tim on the similarities to StarCraft 2 again, and he says here, we absolutely love StarCraft 2 and many other RTS games, but we're running our own race with Stormgate, and our aren't terribly concerned about similarities. Many of the comparisons that have been drawn with other RTS games are totally fair, but also tend to be surface level and largely due to similar subject matter. Most players who have played Celestials would likely agree that they play very differently than what has come before, and I can certainly attest to that. I can also confirm that narratively, they have deep roots with a lot of layers that will help them to feel more unique as players discover more about them. I think that's also something to bear in mind, guys. Even before Starcraft 1 released, and they brought in these three races, right? The humans, the slimy aliens, and these sci-fi with intellect far in advance of our own aliens, aka the Protoss. You know, Blizzard were not the first person to do that. They were not the first person to create the slimy alien race. They were not the first people to create this ragtag, war-torn group of humans who were trying to defend their world against aliens. And they weren't the first people to create something similar to the Protoss either. But nobody really, you know, said, oh wow, you've really just, you know, stolen this idea from here or there. You know, that's kind of the way creativity works. Nobody really thinks up their own idea. You always get inspiration from somewhere, and I feel that that is exactly what Flashjank Games are doing with Stormgate. Yes, of course, they've been inspired by RTS games of the past, and they've drawn inspiration directly from Starcraft 2 and Warcraft 3, but what they're doing here is still very much their own. Now here's a great answer from Gerald Villoria. He is the communications director for the game, and this is really explaining what you're getting for your money if you decide to purchase the early access pack, so that not only you can play the game early on the 30th of July, but you'll also get access to some missions and stuff. So he says the $25 early access pack includes the first paid chapter of the Vanguard campaign, which is 3 missions, plus additional content like the Amara hero for the co-op mode, and the Vanguard Gold Army accent, which is like a cosmetic. You will also be able to purchase all 3 Vanguard campaign chapters containing at least 9 story missions for $25 in the in-game store. He says, as for expected playtime, this will vary widely from person to person. If you're a first timer, for example, it may take you significantly longer to complete the missions versus an RTS Pro. You may also replay the missions cooperatively. We are adding co-op to campaign later in early access, or want to come back and tackle them again several times at different difficulties. We are planning to include Easter eggs and other fun reasons to explore these missions. So again, it depends, you know, do you just want to hop on and play these campaign missions once and then you're done? Is it going to be worth the $25? Is that all you're interested in? You don't care about multiplayer, you don't care about co-op? That's debatable. It's going to be interesting to see just how long these missions are and how much replayability there is to them. So he goes on here and says, our goal is for the campaign missions to be fun, first and foremost, and for them to feel worthwhile to the players who purchase them. We recommend that you play through the free prologue missions first if you want to take a wait-and-see approach, and then pick up the bundle if you had a good experience. Please note that the campaign missions we release on day 1 of early access are not finished products. These will be polished and improved as we continue working on the game on the road to 1.0. We'll also be going back and adding co-op functionality to these missions so that you can play and replay them with friends. We also plan to make it so that anyone who purchases our campaign content will be able to invite friends who haven't purchased them to enjoy together. So for example, I plan to play through the campaign with 2 of my kids, but the current plan is that I'd only have to purchase the content once and they'd be able to play with me for free. Compared to other games where all players need to purchase the content to participate, we believe this will be a popular way to enjoy our story for lots of friends and families. I think that's a really great idea there. You know, there's really no investment that you have to make here. If you are on the fence about the campaign, if you're not sure if it's worth the money for the campaign missions, and that really is all you're interested in, you can still wait for early access. You can still play those 3 prologue missions there for free, and then see if it's an engaging experience enough for you that you want to pay for the rest of the experience. So the next answer here is from Andrew Sabri. He's the engineering director, and this is about the performance of the game. And for those keen-eyed among you who noticed a lot of chugging and frame rate slowdown in some of the trailers for the game, and if you've played the game, then you'll know that once you get like a 200 out of 200 supply Infernal army against another one, and the Infernals have a lot of these like small units on the screen, the frame rate really does start to chug. I was getting down to like sub 30, maybe even sub 20 FPS. I've got a pretty decent rig. I've got a 3080 Ti graphics card, a 5950X Ryzen 9 processor, so, you know, not like the newest of the new, but still pretty decent. And so this is what Andrew had to say on the performance. We are aware of the current performance challenges, and the team is actively working on optimizations. Due to the nature of game development, the final optimizations can't come in until we are feature complete. It's one of the highest engineering priorities before we launch for early access, and we are dedicating significantly more time to it than prior releases. We are committed to continue optimizing all the way through early access after we launch as well. So it sounds here like performance-wise, going from the latest like beta, the Frigate beta, which was the last one, into early access, we should be seeing much better performance than before. So it's going to be interesting to compare that once we've gotten our hands on the game. So those were most of the interesting questions that I found. I will link this down below for you guys because there were a lot more questions there, but this video would be way too long if I focused on all of them. But before we wrap this one up, I wanted to show you guys one of the cosmetics that you can expect to see in the game. And this is going to be one of the shaders for the Fog of War. This is called the Firestorm Fog of War shader, and it's included with the Ultimate Early Access Pack. So if you got the Ultimate Founders Pack, I believe it was called, for the Kickstarter, you should be receiving this. But this is just an example of like one of the cosmetics that is going to be purchasable in game. Personally, I think it looks pretty cool. Obviously, it's not something you have to buy, but as far as cosmetics go, it may be something that I personally would be willing to purchase. I'm not a big cosmetics guy. In general, you know, if you play like first-person shooters and you've got all of the different weapon cosmetics and the soldier cosmetics and stuff like that, I haven't really been keen on them. I don't really like cosmetics overall, but, you know, for an RTS game that I really love, I may consider it. But of course, that's a decision that each and every person is going to come to for themselves. Guys, once again, if you enjoy the content here on the channel, don't forget to hit up the subscribe button, leave a like down below if you enjoyed the video as well, helps out with the algorithm a ton, and leaving those comments down below. Let me know what you think about Stormgate. Are you excited for it? Are you still on the fence, or don't you like what you see? Did any of these questions help alleviate some of your worries with the game? But other than that, have a good one, guys, and I'll see you all here in the next video.